Before the world gets its hands on you, before the noise begins, before the opinions flood in, before demands stack up like bricks against your chest, there is a window, narrow and fleeting, where your mind is still entirely your own. Most people never notice that window. They slam it shut the second their eyes open. They reach sideways for a glowing rectangle and pour someone else's chaos directly into their freshest, most vulnerable moments. The scrolling begins. The comparison begins. The quiet erosion of self begins before they have even taken a single conscious breath. But here is what the ancient Stoics knew, that most modern people have forgotten. The quality of your inner conversation determines the quality of your entire life, not your circumstances, not your bank account, yet not the opinions of people who will never truly know you. The conversation you have with yourself, especially in those first unguarded moments of the day. Marcus Aurelius was one of the most powerful men who ever lived. He commanded armies, he shaped empires, and yet the meditations he wrote, those private journals never meant for anyone else's eyes, reveal that he understood something profound. He wrote, in essence, that the mind which is disciplined and directed inward finds its own form of wealth. Real wealth, the kind that cannot be taxed, stolen, or stripped away by circumstance. He was not alone in this understanding. Epictetus began his life as property, owned, controlled, powerless in every external sense. And yet he became one of the most liberated minds in recorded history. How? He mastered the internal architecture. He took command of the one territory that no captor, no emperor, no misfortune could ever invade, the space between what happens and how he chose to respond. Seneca wrote letters to a young man named Lucilius that still feel urgent and alive 2,000 years later, because they address something that does not age, the way we speak to ourselves, the stories we tell ourselves about who we are, what we deserve, what is possible. Those stories are not passive. They are not just descriptions of reality. They are the blueprints that reality is built from. Here is the science underneath the philosophy. Neuroplasticity, the brain's demonstrated capacity to restructure itself, tells us that repeated thought patterns carve grooves into our neural landscape. Think a thought often enough, speak it enough, believe it enough, and it stops being a thought. It becomes a road, a highway, a default route your mind travels without even consulting you. This means the words you whisper to yourself every morning are not decoration. They are construction. They are the earliest and most powerful form of architecture your mind engages in each day. You are either building a mind that expands, adapts, and grows, or a mind that contracts, repeats, and shrinks. And it all begins with language, with the specific words you choose to hand your consciousness as it wakes. What if 5 single words, spoken deliberately every morning, could fundamentally alter the structure of that inner architecture? Not paragraphs, not mantras you have to memorize, or techniques that require a yoga mat and 45 uninterrupted minutes, just 5 words. Or words that carry the compressed wisdom of the most battle-tested philosophical tradition humanity has ever produced. Words that work because they are not poetic fluff, they are functional tools. The Stoics were not dreamers in ivory towers. They were practitioners. Epictetus taught philosophy from lived experience in chains. Seneca advised the most dangerous rulers in Rome while facing exile and the constant threat of death. Marcus Aurelius wrote his philosophy in a military tent during a plague, surrounded by the full weight of an empire's collapse. These were people who needed their inner tools to actually work. Under real pressure, real loss, real darkness, they left behind a map, not for escaping hardship, they never promised that, but for moving through hardship in a way that leaves you stronger, clearer, and more yourself on the other side. And that map begins, as all good things do, with a single word at a time. Before we go deeper, if you feel this pulling at something real in you, if you sense that what I am saying here points at something you have needed to hear, do not wait until later. Hit the like button right now, leave a comment below, and pass this video to someone in your life who is quietly carrying more than they let on. Subscribe to Stoic Horizon, because this community is being built for exactly this kind of work, the internal work that no one sees but everyone eventually feels. And stay with me through every section. The words that move you most will come when you least expect them. Word 1. Enough. You have been carrying a weight that was never assigned to you by life. It was assigned to you by comparison, by advertising, by the relentless cultural pressure to be more, achieve more, accumulate more, as though the version of you that exists right now is nothing but a rough draft of someone worth taking seriously. That lie has cost you more than you know. It has stolen presence. It has stolen rest. It has turned accomplishment into a treadmill where the finish line keeps moving just far enough ahead to stay unreachable. You hit a goal and feel for a moment that it might be enough. Then the measuring stick shifts, and you are behind again. Always behind. When was the last time you sat inside your own life without the feeling that you were somehow missing the point of it? The Stoic tradition confronts this directly. Epictetus taught that everything we truly need, the capacity for reason, for virtue, for dignity, is already complete within us, not as potential to unlock someday, as presence, right now. He did not say you should stop growing. He said you should stop confusing growth with worthiness. The two are not the same. Growth is what you choose. Worthiness is what you already are. Your value was never meant to be earned. It arrived with you. When you wake tomorrow and speak the word enough, speak it as though you are addressing a truth the world taught you to forget. Something shifts. The internal auditor that has been running a constant deficit report on your life goes quiet just for a moment, long enough for you to breathe, long enough to feel the difference between choosing to grow and being driven by the fear that you are not yet acceptable. That difference is everything. That difference is freedom. You stop performing. You stop editing yourself into shapes that might finally earn approval from people who are themselves quietly terrified they are not enough. You make decisions based on alignment rather than applause. You say no without composing 3 paragraphs of internal justification. You say yes without secretly wondering what it will earn you in someone else's estimation. Marcus Aurelius, ruler of the known world, wrote privately about his own smallness, his own finitude, his own limitations, not to punish himself, to liberate himself, to strip away the pressure of imperial performance and remember that a human being's worth is not located in their title, their victories, or their output. It is located in the quality of their inner life, in how they treat others, in the discipline with which they tend their own character. He wrote essentially that a well-ordered inner life needs very little from the outside to feel complete, because completeness is not an external state. It is a practiced recognition. Say it tomorrow morning. Enough. Say it like you mean it. Say it like a fact, not a consolation. You are not settling. You are arriving. There is a difference. Word 2. Choose. Life is going to deliver you things you did not order. That is not pessimism. That is a covenant that existence makes with everyone born into it. The unexpected phone call. The door that closes on something you wanted badly. The betrayal from a direction you never anticipated. The loss that arrives without warning and without apology. What you cannot control, and this is the Stoic foundation, the unmovable bedrock beneath the entire tradition, is almost everything. The weather, the economy, other people's choices, the past, your body's aging, the unpredictable cascade of events that makes up the world outside your skin. What you can control is the one thing that matters most, and almost no one is defending it. Viktor Frankl survived conditions so inhumane that most people cannot read about them without looking away. And in the center of that darkness, he discovered something the Stoics had been articulating for centuries. Between what happens to you and what you do about it, there is a gap. That gap is not nothing. That gap is the whole of human freedom. It is where your dignity lives, where your authorship lives, where the version of you that you can be proudest of gets built or abandoned. The space between what hits you and how you respond, that is where your entire character lives. When you say the word choose every morning, you are not deluding yourself that you have power over the world. You are claiming power over the only territory that is genuinely yours. Your response, your interpretation, your next step. You are training your nervous system to pause, even fractionally, before it defaults to the old reflex patterns carved by years of reactive living. And that pause, that one breath between trigger and action, is the difference between a life that happens to you and a life you actually author. You receive difficult news. The old version of you collapses into panic and builds a disaster narrative in real time. The version of you who has been practicing choose does something different. You feel the weight of it. That is allowed. That is human. But you do not spiral. You ask, what response serves me here? What does the person I am trying to become do in this moment? You choose from that place, not from the wound. Someone you trusted betrays you. The reflex says, collapse. The choice says, feel the hurt, then decide who you will be inside of it. Will you let this define your worth? Will you let this determine your future trust? Or will you carry the lesson and release the poison? Epictetus made the division explicit and unambiguous. What is in your power? Your judgments, your intentions, your responses, your character. What is outside your power? Virtually everything else. He did not say this to make you feel helpless about external life. He said it to concentrate your energy where it actually produces results. Stop spending your force on terrain you cannot occupy. Pour it all into the ground that is yours. Marcus Aurelius watched plague roll through his empire. He watched men he trusted scheme against him. He watched battles unfold in ways that could not be controlled from any throne. And in all of it, he kept choosing. His response, his clarity, his refusal to be diminished. He wrote that a person holds power over their own mind, even when they hold no power over events. Realize this, he said, and you find something that cannot be taken. Say it every morning. Choose. One word, a full philosophy. Word 3. Here, there are 2 prisons that most people inhabit for the majority of their lives without ever questioning the bars. The first is the past, that country of regret where unchangeable events play on an endless loop and exact their toll in guilt, shame, and the quiet grief of roads not taken. The second is the future, that landscape of projected catastrophe where worst-case scenarios are rehearsed in vivid detail, while the present moment proceeds unseen and untouched. And while the mind is imprisoned in these 2 places, the only moment that actually exists, the only moment where anything real can be built, slips through like water through a clenched fist. Marcus Aurelius wrote with urgency about this. He pressed himself in his private journals to confine attention to the present, not because the past holds no lessons or the future no stakes, but because the present is the only location where genuine power lives. Every plan you make for tomorrow must be executed today. Every lesson you carry from yesterday must be applied now. There is no other theater of action. Think about the cost of the other approach. You replay last year's argument until it has carved a permanent groove in your neurochemistry. You visit that moment daily, extracting fresh punishment from it even though nothing about it can be changed. Or you project yourself into next month's possible disaster, rehearsing it so thoroughly that your body cannot tell the difference between imagination and reality, and it floods you with the same stress hormones either way. Meanwhile, today, the only day available for actual living, passes by unlived. Seneca understood this viscerally. He wrote that most people scatter their existence across time, half their mind behind them in what was lost, the other half ahead of them in what might be lost, and are almost never present in the life they are actually living. He said that to truly possess your life, you must collect it into the present moment. That is where it lives. That is where it breathes. When you say the word here every morning, you are practicing the most radical act available to a modern human being: presence. You are not pretending the past does not matter. You are choosing not to live there. You are not ignoring the future. You are refusing to be consumed by it. You are returning to this breath, this body, this hour, this one unrepeatable day. Here is what changes when you practice this. You stop bleeding energy into what cannot be altered and start pouring it into what is directly in front of you. Conversations become real. You are actually inside them rather than half gone into something that happened 3 weeks ago. The decisions sharpen because you are responding to reality as it is rather than to ghosts and projections. Work deepens because you are genuinely there, not performing presence while your mind lives elsewhere. The life you want is not waiting for you in some future version of yourself. It is accessible now in the attention you are willing to give this day. Say it every morning. Here, one syllable, a complete act of liberation. Word 4, grow. Discomfort is not the enemy. Discomfort is the messenger. And most of us have spent years, decades in some cases, paying heavily for the privilege of not having to hear what it is saying. We stay in situations that quietly drain us because leaving requires a conversation our nervous system has decided is too frightening. We keep our ambitions carefully modest because reaching for something that matters means the possibility of failing at something that matters. We choose the familiar over the right because familiar at least comes with a floor, a known texture of suffering we have already learned to manage. But comfort is not safety. Comfort is stagnation wearing safety's clothes. Seneca wrote that difficulty does for the mind what physical labor does for the body. Not destroy it, condition it, strengthen it. Reveal capacities that soft conditions never demand and therefore never develop. The Stoics did not pursue suffering for its own sake. That is not Stoicism. That is theater. But they did recognize that a life arranged entirely around the avoidance of difficulty is a life that never finds out what it is made of. Epictetus did not acquire his philosophy in comfort. He acquired it in chains, in conditions that would have broken most people, and in the slow realization that what cannot be taken is the only thing worth building. He found growth not despite the harshness of his circumstances, but through them. Through the friction itself, through the daily demand to be more than his situation. The thing you are avoiding right now, the conversation, the attempt, the risk, that avoidance is costing you exactly the version of yourself you most want to become. When you say grow every morning, you are not pretending that difficulty is pleasant. You are telling your mind something truer. This challenge in front of you is not a punishment. It is raw material. The anxiety before the difficult conversation, that is your nervous system preparing. You're not warning you away. The frustration when progress feels invisible, that is depth forming, not failure arriving. The exhaustion after pushing beyond what felt possible, that is construction, not collapse. The Stoic concept of amor fati, love of fate, is not passive acceptance. It is not the shrug of someone who has given up. It is the active embrace of reality as the material you have to work with, not the material you wished for, not the ideal conditions, the actual raw, difficult, imperfect conditions that exist right now. Those are your growth conditions. And no one grows in a greenhouse forever. Say it every morning, grow. Say it before the hard thing. Say it inside the hard thing. Say it after the hard thing, when you are on the other side and you can see, looking back, what it made of you. Word 5, release. Your grip is exhausting you, and the worst part is that what you are gripping so tightly, the outcome, the timeline, the other person's choices, the way things should have gone, none of it is actually in your hands. You are spending enormous reserves of mental and emotional energy holding onto something that was never yours to hold. This is perhaps the most difficult Stoic lesson and also the most liberating. Epictetus drew the line with uncommon clarity. There is what is in your power, and there is everything else. He was not being fatalistic. He was being precise. He was identifying exactly where the effort should go and where it is being wasted. You cannot control other people's journeys. You cannot speed time. You cannot force outcomes, and every hour you spend trying is an hour stolen from building what you actually can. But think about the person you love who is making choices that worry you. You have said what needed saying. You have shown up in every way available, and they are still on a path you would not choose for them. The grief of that is real, the powerlessness is real, but the additional suffering you create by carrying their journey on top of your own, that is optional. That is the grip, and releasing it does not mean you love them less. It means you have remembered something essential. Their path is theirs. Your peace is yours. Both can coexist. Or think about the timeline, the version of your life you imagined by now, the milestones that were supposed to mark the distance. Life moved differently, it always does, and you have been quietly punishing yourself, or the universe, or time itself, for the deviation. Seneca, forced into exile, stripped of everything familiar and certain, wrote that luck reveals itself as the meeting of preparation and opportunity, and that the timing of the opportunity is not yours to command. Your responsibility is the preparation, the readiness, the continued showing up. The arrival of the right moment is not in your hands, and accepting that is not resignation. It is the release of a burden that was never rightfully yours to carry. When you say release every morning, your shoulders drop. Something in your chest loosens. You are not giving up. You are giving over, returning the weight of what was never yours to carry back to the universe that issued it. You are trusting not that everything will go your way, but that you will be whole regardless, that you have what it takes to navigate whatever arrives. And in that trust, in that willingness to let go, you find a peace that control chasing has been standing in the way of your entire life. Marcus Aurelius, the man with more apparent control than almost anyone in history, understood with painful clarity how little he actually controlled. Plague, betrayal, loss, the entropy of empire. He could not stop any of it. What he could do was tend his own character, hold his own ground, choose his own response, and release with open hands everything that was beyond his reach. He wrote that no good can come from troubling your inner world over things that have no obligation to bend to your will. The only sovereignty that is truly yours is the sovereignty over your own mind. Claim that fiercely and release everything else. Say it every morning, release. 5 words, not a system, not a program, not something that requires a subscription, a seminar, or a complete restructuring of your life before you can begin. Just 5 words, spoken to yourself each morning with the intention they deserve. Enough. Choose, hear, grow, release. These are not affirmations in the decorative sense. pleasant phrases that dissolve the moment reality applies any pressure. These are functional tools forged by people who faced real darkness. Epictetus, who had nothing external and built everything internally. Seneca, who advised power while surrounded by danger and still found a way to live with philosophical clarity. Marcus Aurelius, who ran an empire from inside a military tent during a pandemic and still found time to remind himself daily how to be a decent human being. They did not have easier lives than you. In many ways, they had harder ones. What they had was a practice, a daily discipline of speaking to themselves in a way that built strength rather than eroding it. You are not starting from nowhere. The practice is as old as the tradition. The words are simple by design, and the work is entirely yours, which is the only kind of work that actually transforms anything. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are exactly the person who wakes up, says the words, and begins again. Your mind is the most influential environment you will ever live in. You are its architect, not its victim, not its prisoner, its architect. Every morning you wake up, you have a choice about what you build that day, what materials you use, what structures you reinforce, what walls you finally decide to stop maintaining. The Stoics spent their lifetimes proving that the internal life is not a soft concern. It is the central concern. Everything else flows from the quality of what you build in there. Your relationships, your decisions, your resilience, your capacity for genuine joy, all of it is downstream of the conversation you have with yourself before the world gets a say. One morning at a time, one word at a time, one choice at a time. You will forget some mornings. Old patterns will pull you back on others. That is not failure. That is the texture of actual human change, non-linear, imperfect, and real. The only failure is the morning you stop returning to the practice entirely. So return, always return. Enough, choose, hear, grow, release. If this landed somewhere real for you, if even one of these words felt like something you have been searching for a name to give, then share this video with someone who needs it. Leave a comment below telling me which word is the one you are carrying into tomorrow. Hit that like button and subscribe to Stoic Horizon, because we are building something here for the long haul, for the people who are serious about the interior life. The work continues, and so do you.